So guys, now let's learn how to assemble the components and complete the assembly. So here we are going to insert the components one by one, and we will be using the constraints and we will be carrying out the assembly. So let us see step by step. So we have opened a new product file. We are going to insert the component. So the first component that we are going to insert is by existing component. Click on the product and we will be inserting the base. Okay, so once we have inserted the base, the first thing that we have to do is we have to fix the base. Okay, so here we have the fix component command. So we will fix the base so that it has 0 degrees of freedom. Now we can analyze that. Click on the part, click on analyze and click on degree of freedom. So we can see there is no degree of freedom for part 1. So let's insert the next component, and now we will be using existing component with positioning. Okay, so click on the product, we will be inserting support, drag it and place it temporary somewhere, click OK, and now we are going to use 3 different constraints to assemble this component. Okay, so here we can see the toolbar is not active. So in order to make this toolbar active, you have to click on product. Okay, you have to double click on the product. Now let's apply coincident constraint. Select any one axis and select the axis here. Click on update. Okay, now let's apply a contact constraint on this face and this face. Click on update and we have assembled this component. Now if we see the degrees of freedom, so double click on the part 2, click on analyze, click on degree of freedom. We can see it has 1 degree of freedom. So we have to apply one more constraint to remove the degree of freedom. Okay, so let's apply an offset constraint to this face and this face. Click OK. Now let's analyze. In order to analyze, what we have to do, we have to activate this component. It can be activated by double clicking on part name and then click on analyze, click on degree of freedom, and then we can see there is no degree of freedom for part 2. Okay, similarly we will be doing the assembly of one more support. So let's insert, let's place it somewhere here, click OK, apply coincident constraint, select axis here, select axis here. We have to rotate this component and it has to face in opposite direction. So we have selected the axis of this hole and the axis of this hole so that this support is rotated and change the direction. Okay, let's click on update. Now let's apply one more constraint, coincident constraint. Select the axis of this hole, select the axis of this hole, click on update. Now we can see the support has changed the direction. Now let's apply one more constraint, and in order to apply contact constraint, we will not be able to select the face, bottom face. So first we will move this component using manipulation, and this is the Z direction. So let's click on drag along Z and we will drag it up, click OK. Now let's click on contact constraint, select this face and update. So we have assembled this component. Let's check the degree of freedom. Click on analyze, degrees of freedom, and there is no degree of freedom. Okay, now let's insert the bolt, 4 bolts, and assemble here. So click on insert, click on product, select the bolt, and we have a bolt here. Click OK. Click on coincident constraint, select the axis here, select the axis here, click on update. Select contact constraint, select this face and select this face, click on update, and let's apply one more constraint. So we will apply offset constraint. Let's select this edge and this edge, click OK. So now let's analyze this component, that is the bolt, and we can see there is no degree of freedom. Okay, similarly quickly we will do the assembly of rest of the three components, rest of the three bolts. So insert, we have one bolt here, insert two more bolts, click OK. So let's quickly assemble it. So in this way we have assembled all the 4 bolts, and we have applied 3 constraints to each. One is coincidental constraint, one is a contact constraint, and the third is offset constraint. Okay, so now let's insert the wheel. Let's apply the coincident constraint, select the axis here, select the axis here, update, click on contact constraint, select this face, select this face, click on update. Now in order to apply the offset constraint, before applying offset constraint, let's analyze. So this is the wheel, click on analyze degrees of freedom. We can see there is 1 degree of freedom, that is it can rotate about y-axis. So in order to fix that, we can apply an offset constraint. Now we have to apply offset constraint to any one of the plane. So here we have the planes, so apply offset constraint, select this plane and select this face, click OK. Now let's analyze the wheel. We can see there is no degrees of freedom. Okay, so let's insert the next component. We will be inserting a bush. So we have a bush here, click OK. Now bush is going to get fixed here. Okay, So let's click on Coincident Constraint, select the axis here, click on Update, Contact Constraint, select this phase, click on Update. Let's apply Offset Constraint to this plane, select this phase, click OK. Let's check the degree of freedom. So there is no degree of freedom. Let's insert one more bush. And we are going to insert here. Okay. Let's analyze. So the degree of freedom is 0. Let's insert the next component. We'll be inserting washer. We have to insert 2 washers. Click OK. Let's apply constraints, coincident constraint. Let's apply contact constraint. Let's apply the offset constraint. Let's check the degree of freedom. So there is no degree of freedom. Now let's assemble the next washer. Click on contact constraint. Select this phase. Click on update. Let's apply the offset constraint. Okay. Now let's insert the shoulder screw. Click on insert, existing component, shoulder screw. Click OK. Click on coincident constraint, select the axis. Select the axis here. Click on update. Click on contact constraint, select this phase and select this phase of washer. Click update. Okay, let's apply one more constraint, that is offset constraint. Let's click on offset constraint, select this plane, select this phase, click update. Let's analyze this shoulder screw. There is no degree of freedom, so let's move on. Let's insert the last component. Click on insert existing component, product, and we have a nut here. Okay, let's click OK. Click on coincidence constraint, select the axis here, select the axis here, click on update. Let's apply the next constraint, that is a contact constraint. Select this phase and select this phase of washer, click on update. Okay, so let's apply the last constraint, that is the offset constraint. Let's select this plane. Let us select this plane and select this phase. Click OK, and here we go. Let's analyze. So the degree of freedom is 0. So let's analyze. There is no degree of freedom. You can see that a lot of constraints that we have applied. If you want to hide this constraints, you can just right click on the constraint and you can hide it. Okay, so now let's have a quick analysis. Let's click on analyze, click on clash. Here we can select clearance, contact plus clash, apply, and we have a detailed report here. Okay, so it is going to show the relationship between the two components. So you can go through the entire list and check one by one. So here you can see the part 1 and part 2, there is a contact. Part 1 and part 2, again there is a contact. Part 1 and 3, there is a contact. So you can see many of the components are having contact. You can see here there is a clearance, and this is because we have used a washer here. So there is a clearance between shoulder screw and this phase of the support. Okay, so this is the way that you can carry out the assembly, and you need to take care that all the components has 0 degrees of freedom. In order to achieve 0 degrees of freedom, you have to use proper constraints, and then you can check the clashes and verify if something is wrong, and you can rectify it. Okay, so that's all about the first assignment.